The Australian dollar started the week in quiet ranges around 75 to 75.5 cents, but then it started to surge steeply, rising through 77 cents for the first time since July 2015. The catalyst, of course, was a steep fall in the US dollar following the speech by Fed Chair Yellen to the Economic Club of New York. While we have heard a number of Fed officials in recent days painting a more upbeat picture on the US economy and talking about interest rate increases later this year, Janet Yellen sounded far more concerned about the outlook. Yellen's very cautious outlook saw markets push out the pricing for the next Fed rate hike all the way to the second quarter of 2017. Now, Westpac hasn't changed its view on the most likely Fed path. We are still looking for 2 more rate hikes this year. But short term, the impact of Yellen's speech is likely to continue to weigh on the US dollar. Indeed, over the past week, the US dollar has fallen against all G10 currencies. Of these, the Australian dollar comes in at number 5, so its gain against the US dollar is not particularly unusual. But what will the Reserve Bank of Australia make of this rise in the Aussie against the US dollar when it meets on Tuesday? Markets are placing about a 90% probability on the Reserve Bank keeping its cash rate at 2% on Tuesday. So most market attention will instead be on the nature of the statement, the language used on the economy, and in particular on the currency. Westpac expects that the RBA will remain mostly upbeat on the economic outlook. There is a little bit more doubt about the language they'll use on the Aussie dollar, however. In its monthly statements, the Reserve Bank hasn't used any language warning of the need for a weaker Aussie dollar since last July. And we do have to bear in mind that there's been a pickup in commodity prices over the past few months. So the rise in the Aussie is not just about a weaker US dollar. Westpac expects that the RBA will be patient about this rally in the Aussie dollar, still expecting it to weaken later this year. As such, they'll probably keep similar language on the Aussie in the statement on Tuesday. Along with some decent readings on the Australian economy on retail sales and building approvals, we think that should set up the Aussie for another good week. It looks as though it has the potential to extend to the 77 to 78 cent area that prevailed last June. But we saw a similar surge in the Australian dollar in the second quarter of 2015, which didn't really alter the long-term trend. And we suspect that'll be the case this year as well. This near-term strength in the Aussie isn't likely to be sustained, with our 6-month view still for the Australian dollar to move towards about the 70 cent mark as increased supply of commodities weighs on commodity prices and as the Federal Reserve does deliver some monetary tightening later this year. We'll speak to you next week.